One question I see a lot of people asking detransitioners is, does the gender dysphoria ever go away? And the answer, at least in my case, is no. You just have to kind of thug it out. And I think that a lot of detransitioners feel this way, even the ones that were like never really trans and only experienced symptoms of gender dysphoria because they had unresolved trauma or like internalized misogyny or homophobia or whatever. Just being aware of that doesn't just mean it magically goes away, right? And that's why you kind of have to distract yourself. It's the only way. Like, for me, I just write, and that's how I cope with my gender dysphoria. I create characters who are like little pieces of me, kind of. I don't want to make every character a self-insert character, but that's just kind of how it turns out sometimes. You just gotta find a hobby if you're in this situation. And if I'm being totally honest with you, I don't even know why I developed gender dysphoria. I mean, for a lot of people, there's not really a why. It's just something that happens. People with gender dysphoria or trans people or whatever have existed in some form since the dawn of time. I developed gender dysphoria at a young age, long before I had any sort of sexual trauma or internalized homophobia or internalized misogyny or whatnot. As I grew older, I started to realize that I was an unattractive woman, and that didn't cause the gender dysphoria, but that definitely made it worse. Because in this world, if you are an ugly woman, it's almost like you don't exist. From day one, women are told that their physical appearance determines their worth. With men, it's different. It's more about what you bring to the table, how much money you make, how big your car is, etc., etc. Unattractive men can still make it big. I mean, at least you can be a comedian or something. I mean, hell, you can even be an actor. There are a lot of unattractive male actors, but when's the last time you saw an ugly actress? And I don't want people in the comments to go, oh, you're not ugly. Because the thing is, if I was not ugly, believe me, I would know. People only ever call me attractive when I state that I am unattractive because they're trying to make me feel better. If I posted a video about how sexy I am, everybody would be dragging me in the comments. I mean, I've seen the way you guys treat ugly people who have even the tiniest amount of confidence. And I mean, there's more to life than just being beautiful. For one thing, I'm smarter than you. But yeah, the societal programming even gets to me sometimes. I think, well, if I can't be an attractive woman, why even be a woman at all? It's funny because when I was trans, people would try to, like, trigger me or whatever by saying that I looked like a woman, and now people try to trigger me by saying that I look like a man. It's really funny when people say that detransitioners are all, like, conservative grifters who want ass pats from the alt-right, because every single time a right-winger comments on my videos, it's them telling me to kill myself or something. It doesn't matter that I'm not trans anymore. They just hear the word trans and their brain starts short-circuiting. Just being trans at one point in time is enough to make me guilty by association to them. So you're probably sitting here wondering, well, if you have gender dysphoria, why don't you just transition? And the answer to that is the same answer I would give if someone asked me why I don't have any other sort of surgery procedure like plastic surgery that I want. It's because I know that if I got on hormones, I would want top surgery. And if I got top surgery, I would want body masculinization surgery. And if I got body masculinization surgery, I would want to get like leg lengthening surgery. And after that, I would want to get like facial masculinization surgery. Like it would never, ever, ever end. That's just the way that I am. There isn't a huge difference between what my life looked like when I identified as trans versus what it looks like now. I just kind of made the choice between being perceived as a mentally ill butch lesbian or a butch lesbian. I mean, I think I probably could pass as a man given a couple years of testosterone, but have you fucking seen the way that short, ugly, autistic guys get treated? I would rather just deal with it than ever be treated like a potential school shooter because I'm socially awkward ever again. And I know that a lot of you guys are probably sitting here waiting for me to say something egregiously offensive, so here it is. I think that the reason we see, like, a lot of people who identify as trans men, trans masculine, whatever, and then they don't medically transition or don't dress masculine is not necessarily because they don't want to, but because they're afraid of how society would treat them if they were perceived as feminine men rather than masculine women. Because if Project 2025 actually gets passed and we become a dictatorship and we go from like Weimar Germany to Nazi Germany, if you catch my drift, then it's going to be the medically transitioning people that will suffer the most. Because they can't just detransition back into normal looking cis people. They're always going to have these permanent effects of hormones or surgeries that kind of mark them like the scarlet letter. There's a reason why you see like so many non-transitioning trans men and very few non-transitioning trans women. It's because if people see someone who looks like a man in a dress, they're gonna beat the shit out of that person. If people see someone who looks like a woman with short hair, they're gonna look at her weird. And before you guys get mad, I'm not even being a hater, you know? I'm not saying anything you guys don't already know. I'm just phrasing it in a different way. You know that the only place on earth where it is acceptable for men to be even slightly feminine is within the LGBT community. A lot of you guys, you want the male body, but not the male social role. And I understand because not even cis men want the male social role. You know, nobody wants to have to repress their emotions and avoid doing anything fun because it might be perceived as like feminine. That's one of the things that was so hard for me about being trans, is just having to perform all of the time. You know, performing masculinity, it just gets so exhausting. And, like, as a woman, you're allowed to express masculinity or femininity a lot more freely. Men are afraid to express femininity, and feminine men are treated worse than masculine women because their whole lives men are taught the only thing worse than being a woman is being a man who is like a woman. I hated performing, and more than anything, I hated this feeling like people were walking on eggshells around me all of the time. You know, liberals will do this thing where, like, they try so hard to be an ally that it circles back around to being transphobic. Like, for instance, I would be, like, the only trans person in a room, and then, like, someone would single me out and ask me about my pronouns. You can assume people's pronouns, like, 90% of the time. Like, even when it's a gender non-conforming person, I can kind of tell what someone's pronouns are based on their vibes alone. And then 99% of the time, if I go and look at their bio, I'm right. If you see someone who looks like a clocky trans woman, you can kind of assume that's just a clocky trans woman. You don't have to go and, like, remind this person of how clocky they are by going up to them and asking them about their pronouns, just in case it's like a guy who likes wearing makeup. I guarantee you that a guy who wears makeup would be less offended at you assuming that he's a trans woman than a clocky trans woman would be offended at you asking her about her pronouns and singling her out. I have a lot of thoughts on this subject, but I'm not gonna, like, dworkin out on you guys because I don't like being accused of being a TERF for having thoughts. So this is gonna be the end of the video for now. See you guys later.